So I'm here to talk to you about microservices and cross-functional teams. I hope that resonates a little bit. I don't know if it does, but really actually my goal here is to talk to you quickly, maybe about 10 minutes, about what this is all about and my experience in it. And then hopefully you'll want to know more about it. And next time we'll talk a little more about that. Okay? All right. So why me? Right? Anybody ever see this guy?
Yeah. There's a stapler.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, that's not me. So, and I'll tell you what, right? A couple of reasons. My goal is to build business value for customers. Customers that I serve, for customers that buy my product. And so over the years, the different companies that I work for, as you can see, some of them are probably under the line right here. It's a resolution that quite didn't work out. But down here, there's Oracle, then there's Vitratech, United Online, InnerThings, Simplify, Prezi. Prezi is where I work right now. I'm not going to talk about Prezi today. I am, however, going to talk about a company called InnerThings, a company that actually I started work for probably back in 2010. Right? This is really where I started dealing with microservices. Right? And really, actually, there were a few things about the company when I joined, which is what I want to share with you, right? So really going into it, what this is going to be all about is a trailer. Like I talked about, that I'm going to share with you maybe a small snippet of the things that I've gone through. So if you think about it, it's a movie trailer, right? So InnerThings. Who is InnerThings? So prior to coming to Prezi, I spent a lot of time in the US financial industries, the mortgage industry specifically. So back in 2000, when things were going kind of south with the mortgage market, yeah, that's when we got into this business. We started doing these risk solutions, right? That's when everybody woke up and said that, oh my God, I have to find something or not, I am going under, right? That's the deal, right? So there's this company called InnerThings who introduced a risk mitigation software, which basically had to do with identifying risk with the borrower who's trying to borrow money, and also the property that the bank is trying to put a mortgage out on, right? So that's the company I started working. The first problem that we had in the company is, of course, and you all heard about what, microservices and why they're there, right? So this is nothing new. These are the same things that we ran into. So monolithic releases. The first 2 weeks that I was in InnerThings, I walked into the company, I'm walking up the stairs, I think I just finished my meeting with HR and I'm walking up the stairs and I run into the CTO. And he goes, hey, you coming to the release tonight? Okay, what? We're gonna drink some beers after you're done releasing? Sure, sounds good, yeah, I'll be there. So I show up, there's this conference room, no windows. I walk in and there's this table full of people just sitting there with computers in front of them. They're all plugged in, they're getting ready for release. So you're almost like, you're getting ready for battle, right? Everybody's putting their suits on and all that kind of stuff. You're getting ready for this thing. I'm like, okay, all right, this is okay, this is safe, I guess. So I walk in, I sit down, and I'm like, okay, so where are the beers? They go, what? You know? So I was there for 24 hours for a release. That was not the last of it. I've been in 72-hour releases, monolithic releases. It's insane, right? So, and after that 24 hours, the whole release, they needed to roll back. Yeah. So what that was all about, they looked at me and they're all like, okay, this is where your job starts. You have to go tell the CEO that we're not releasing. Okay, all right, so I have to do something about that, right? Can't be the bad guy every time. Long-running projects. So, as you know, monolithic architectures, you've got all these components just jumbled into one place. Every time you try to introduce a new feature as a product manager, just like, yeah, I'm gonna do that, right? And you go over to development, very slowly. Right? So you go over to development and you ask them, hey, how long is this going to take? 9 months. What? So I have to go be the bad guy again and tell everybody it's going to take 9 months, or get into a battle with everybody just saying that, okay, let's see where we can cut corners. Keep in mind that throughout the whole thing, my goal is to provide business value to my customer. So if a project takes 9 months, that's 9 months before I can provide business value to my customer. In the meantime, competitors are coming into the place and they're stealing my market, stealing our ideas, and boom, there they go. There goes that market, right? Next problem. We have these functional teams, right? We had a set of DBAs, set of application developers, front-end developers. We had the UX folks in one place, design folks, and product owners. I went to go ask for something to the DBAs. They said, well, that's not my job. Go ask the application guy. The application guy goes, no, go ask the front-end guy. The front-end guy goes, no, ask the DBA. And they're doing a full circle on that, right? So functional teams, very challenging. There's some other things right here that's not coming up. But really, actually, at the end of the day, what this is really showing, there's another thing that says, what about the customer in this whole thing, right? That's the main purpose. Quickly valuable, repeated usage of your product is getting just completely covered with all of these things. So, you don't see the rest of this thing, but basically, every release that happened, every time we went to go find out how long a project was going to take, went to a functional team, I'm just basically crossing my fingers and hope it works, right? So that was my only way out of this thing, out of the stress, right? So what's the big thing about these functional teams? Yeah, great. From a solution perspective, we moved into a microservices architecture from the monolithic architecture. What we did was we worked on projects, and when we worked on a certain project, certain piece of that particular monolithic architecture, we decided that we would take over every single one of this component and basically make it into a microservice. Now, when we got into a bigger piece, bigger component, yeah, of course, that was harder to do, and it took us a longer time, but we did it. So from a technical perspective, we had what was going to solve the first two problems. I'm giving you a very sort of preliminary version of this Reader's Digest, if you will. There's more to this, and the way to kind of put it is that when you picked up the first Harry Potter book, like The Sorcerer's Stone, I think that's what it's called, you kind of decided if you're going to go read the next book or not based on that, right? And this is the same type of thing, is that if you think that this is the chapter you want to spend more time on, next time I'm happy to go into the details on how we moved into this whole microservices architecture. But let's just say that we solved it from a technical perspective, right? And now let's talk about how we solved it for the functional teams, because this is important. In my experience, what I've found out is that, or what I've learned, I should say, is that basically without having those cross-functional teams, it's really tough, almost impossible to build good microservices. So once we looked at these functional teams, we started trying out different models out there. You probably heard of all these different models. So agency model, for example. What we did is we said that, okay, we have these DBAs, we have these application developers, we have this front-end developers. As projects come in, as those prioritized projects, features, enhancements come in, we'll build teams around it. So we pulled a DBA, we pulled an application guy, we pulled a front-end guy, we got a UX person, we got a product owner, and we built these agency model, right? And what happened with that is that they built a great service, a great function, or a great feature, and then they moved on. So there was nobody maintaining that microservice. So now we had to go in and get like these operation guys and bring them in, bring them up to speed, so that these guys could then support and maintain the product over time. So when bugs came in, they're the ones that actually worked on it, right? So there was a bigger cost on that whole model. So we said, okay, well let's think about this. Let's kind of have a consultancy model, which basically said that, okay, you know what? We've got this core group of product owners, UXers, they're gonna do all their stuff, and then we're gonna go to the DBA and ask them for help, and they can consult with us, and then that's how we'll build. Again, we face the same problem that we face with the agency model. What worked for us is a little bit of the partnership model, where we pull people in. However, that had its own problems as well too. At the end of the day, again, apologize for this thing just sinking in here, but really actually it's the slide, it's the background picture that's back there. But really what worked for us is this cross-functional team. Now when I say cross-functional team, does that resonate to people? Do people get that? Yes? No? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Generally? So really actually that's how it worked for us at InnerThings. It was a good model for us to be able to have self-sustaining team that felt responsible for those features, that felt responsible for those microservices. They basically own those things. We had to have program management on top of it, so communication was good and things like that. However, overall, stakeholder management and all of those things were just basically managed by those teams, right? Now, that was InnerThings. That's the trailer version of it. We can go into details some other time. However, that was the InnerThings version of it. I worked at a couple other places, of course, as you saw, Simplify and now Prezi. They're all different. How things work at Simplify, how things work in Prezi are quite different, and how they're aligned with building microservices and the cross-functional teams that support them or basically own these microservices are quite different. Because at the end of the day, the business value that you're providing to your customer is different, and the type of customer that you're providing to is different as well from business to business. And you need to understand that, and that's why I'm here as a product guy, kind of just talking about why that's important, is because once you understand the business value and you're able to kind of pull it down to this cross-functional team, the whole entire organization basically understands what the overall business value for that company is and where we're going as an organization. Good question.
So this is funny, quite resonate my own experiences. So in another company, we call this the squad model actually, but this is partnership model in a way. My question is, so our corner cases that the sweet spots are really dedicated microservices owned by the team fully. They work amazingly. So meetings are short, we deliver quite fast. We have a table of a business guy there, UX guy. So really we talk to high-level guys in the business. It's quite working. The question, how do you solve those gray area things which actually get to the border or the edge of easily owned up microservices, which actually get to the middle ground or no man's land of the squads or teams? So what would you do more, or why you more ownership, but that means that people need to work for others' requests, so it's not really the partnership model, or co-owning the microservice, which actually kills ownership. And so we battled those two versions, and neither of them looks working.
Yeah, that's a great question, because one of the problems we have at Prezi right now is that we've got two different microservices, and basically both of them interact, and we have this performance issue, right? So who owns that performance issue? I think that would be a good example where you're going with that, right? So the way we've worked it out, and I'm not saying this is the answer, because I don't know if we've worked it out. There's going to be more to it. We run the shop, or we run the organization, the product organization, and the engineering organization with three different missions. So we have the value mission, which basically provides the value before you actually buy our product, and then the journey mission, which basically takes you through the journey and the whole thing of the product. So these are really actually the customer-facing teams and the ones that actually have those different microservices, own those microservices. However, supporting them is this back-end group that we call Force, because the guy who runs it is a big Star Wars fan. So we call it Force, and they actually own some of these gray areas themselves. So from a performance perspective, they support them. What also helps is that there's this whole thing about program management as well too, that makes these three different units talk to each other and surface these things up so that we can figure those out. Because the example that I used, the performance thing, it becomes a customer specific thing at the end as well too. Once we understand that, then it actually can be brought up and dealt with it in a more visible manner. Does that help?
Yep.
Does that answer the question? Sure. That was the end of my talk actually. So yeah. Yep.
Thank you. Could you please explain from your perspective what is the biggest challenge about microservices?
Good question. Great question. I think one of the things is what Peter brought up right here is the gray areas right here. One of the challenges that we're going through right now, and I'm going to use this as an example as well too, is basically documentation, keeping documentation up to date, right? So, and this is personal challenge, and not every other one. So one of the teams would work on the documentation, like for example a Swagger file or something like that. They wouldn't keep it up to date, you know. And another group comes in to do an API call to it, and basically they don't have the latest document, and so it doesn't work right off the bat, right? So it's so they have to go back and figure those things out and understand that, right? So we've got this. We kind of came up with a tool to make sure that at the end of, well, not tool plus a process, at the end of every sort of update to a microservice, that the documentation, there are triggers in supporting documentation that includes updating the microservice file as well too. So you know, things like that. There's microservice. Then there are the other things, like for example, with a partnership model right here, like how do they all consider security? How do they all consider data? All of those other ancillary things that are out here. So those are, I think, challenges that we've kind of faced, where we've talked about those different models and bringing them into place as well. So the partnership model for that one worked as well too. That's just my experience. Great. Any other questions? All right, I very much thank you for your time. I hope this was helpful for you, and I'll only find out if I come back the next time. So thank you very much.